If you've been following Australia's immigration story, you'll know it's never boring. Just when you think you've figured out the system, another change comes along. And 2025 is one of those years where the migration rules are not just changing quietly in the background, they're being shaken like a snow globe. This isn't just about a few tweaks to visa forms or the usual shuffling of occupations on a list. What's happening now goes deeper. It's political, economic, and cultural all at once. The bigger picture. Why a shakeup in 2025? The short answer is pressure. Australia has been walking a tightrope between welcoming skilled migrants and managing a population that's getting pretty vocal about crowded cities, housing costs, and wages not keeping up. Add in global factors like competition for skilled workers with countries like Canada, New Zealand, and even Germany, and suddenly the government feels it has to reinvent the wheel, or at least respin it. So, here we are in 2025 with new policies that try to please everyone. Spoiler, they don't. Who's winning and who's losing? Let's start with the winners. If you're in a sector that screams critical to Australia's future, you're in luck. Think health, aged care, construction, and tech. That doesn't just make apps for cat memes. Australia wants you yesterday. The visa pathways for these jobs are being made faster, smoother, and in some cases, almost red carpet level. Now the losers. If you're in occupations that used to be the bread and butter of skilled migration, but don't quite fit the current demand, like some trades, general admin, or lower demand service roles, you're going to feel the pinch. The shakeup has pushed these jobs further down the priority list, meaning longer waits or fewer invites. This is the government's way of saying, we still like you, but not enough to let you cut the line. Student visas take the spotlight. International students are feeling the shake the hardest. For years, Australia relied on them to fill universities, pump money into local economies, and then slot into the workforce. But now, tighter English requirements, stricter checks, and reduced post-study work rights are making things trickier. The aim is to weed out people using study as a backdoor into migration. But critics say it risks damaging one of Australia's most lucrative industries. Universities, cafes, and retail shops that depend on student workers are worried. Students themselves? They're just confused. The rise of regional Australia. Another big theme in the shakeup is regional migration. For years, governments have tried to push new arrivals outside Sydney and Melbourne. In 2025, that push has turned into a shove. Visas tied to regional work, like the 491, are getting more support. States are getting more say in who they nominate, and incentives for migrants to stay in smaller towns are stronger than ever. The idea is simple. If you're willing to live in places where housing is cheaper and job shortages are more severe, Australia is more willing to welcome you. But of course, the trade-off is lifestyle. Not everyone wants to swap the city buzz for a quiet town where the highlight of the week is the Saturday market. Public pushback. Let's talk about the protests. Yes, protests against migration are real, and they're loud in 2025. It's not that Australians suddenly don't want migrants. The country has always been built on migration. But the frustration about cost of living, housing shortages, and stagnant wages has found a target. Some genuinely believe migration is making their lives harder. Others see it as politicians avoiding responsibility for bigger structural issues. Either way, the debate has shifted from polite policy talk to angry placards and rallies. This is important context. The shakeup isn't happening in a vacuum. It's a political response to pressure from the ground. Whether or not it actually fixes the problems is another question. The political game. Speaking of politics, migration has become a hot potato in 2025. Both major parties are trying to look tough on borders while still keeping business leaders happy. After all, industries like healthcare and construction are crying out for more workers. The shakeup reflects that balancing act. On paper, it looks like a crackdown. In practice, it's more like a reshuffle. Fewer international students and temporary workers, but more skilled professionals and regional pathways. It's a way for the government to say, we're listening to voters, while still quietly keeping migration levels high enough to stop the economy from stalling. What it means for skilled migrants. So, if you're an engineer, nurse, software developer, or construction worker, the shakeup is actually good news. You're more in demand than ever. Invitations are likely to come faster, and states are actively hunting for you. But if you're outside those hot sectors, patience is the name of the game. Waiting times might get longer, and you'll need to be strategic about which visa pathway you target. The general skilled migration pool is becoming more competitive, and the margin for error is shrinking. In short, 2025 is not the year to apply casually. It's the year to plan carefully, research thoroughly, and maybe get professional advice before hitting submit. Another layer to all this is global competition. Australia isn't the only country chasing skilled migrants. Canada, the UK, and Germany are all adjusting their policies to attract the same people. Australia's shakeup is partly about making the system more appealing compared to these rivals. The permanent residency pathways are being marketed as simpler and more secure for people in priority jobs. It's a recruitment game, and the government knows it. The big question is whether Australia can outcompete countries with better housing affordability or lower costs of living. Because let's be honest, sunshine and beaches only get you so far when rent in Sydney feels like a second mortgage. Policy talk can get dry, so let's not forget the human impact. For migrants already in the system, the shakeup means uncertainty. People who thought they were on a clear path might now face delays or new requirements. Families planning their futures are suddenly recalculating timelines. Employers in sectors losing migration priority are worried about staffing shortages. Communities reliant on international students are bracing for economic hits, and young Aussies hoping cheaper rents will magically appear. They might be waiting a while. So, is it really a shakeup? Yes, and no. It's a shakeup in the sense that rules are shifting quickly, priorities are being rewritten, and the politics of migration are front-page news again. But in another sense, it's business as usual. Migration in Australia has always been a moving target. Lists change, policies tighten and loosen, and every few years the system gets a rebrand. The difference in 2025 is the level of public attention. Migration isn't just an issue for policy nerds anymore. It's something Australians are debating at barbecues, in Parliament, and on the streets. And that means the shakeup is as much about perception as it is about policy. Australia's migration shakeup this year is a reminder of how complicated the system really is. It's not just about visas. It's about housing, politics, economics, and culture all colliding in one messy bundle. For migrants, it's both opportunity and challenge. If you're in the right sector and willing to adapt, doors are opening. If not, patience and creativity are required. For Australians, the shakeup is a promise that the government is listening, even if the actual outcomes take years to show. One thing's for sure, migration isn't going away. Australia needs it. The question is how to shape it so that both newcomers and locals feel the benefits. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by all the changes, the shakeup of 2025 is just the latest chapter in a story that's far from finished.